Hi everyone, welcome back to Japanese Politics 101. In Japanese Politics 101, we discuss certain components that make up what we call Japanese politics. Today's episode focuses on Soka Gakkai. It is a sect of the Buddhist religion here in Japan. Before we get into the issue, please don't forget to hit like, also share and subscribe to our video channel. Proliferate it with your friends. Michael, Soka Gakkai, we're a little bit reluctant to get into this issue, aren't we?
There's a lot of mystery and a lot of bad press that has gone on about the Soka Gakkai. We've discussed them a little bit in regards to the LDP's main partner for the past, since basically the year 2000, last 18 years, the Komeito. And the Komeito and the Soka Gakkai are ostensibly different creatures. Mm-hmm. But everybody is pretty clear that the Komeito Party is basically the front, the face, of the Soka Gakkai, which is a religious organization, a religious corporation here in Japan. It is the largest one by far. Mm-hmm.
And we have to somehow couch our words a little bit because the Soka Gakkai is very protective of its image. It's not very far, the headquarters is not very far from where we're located here.
Yeah, this is Shinanomachiis, it's very close by. And you go there and you say, wow, there are all these Romanian flags around here. And then you say, no, that's the flag of the Soka Gakkai.
Right.
Okay. What does that mean? And what the Soka Gakkai is, it's a Buddhist study group that was established in the 1930s by Nichiren Buddhists. Now, Nichiren Buddhism is an indigenous form of Buddhism of Japan, established in the 13th century by a monk named Nichiren, who felt that the most important act was, well, there were two. One was the reverence for the Lotus Sutra, and in fact, most people know Soka Gakkai from the chanting that is done of the name of the Lotus Sutra, and the chant goes Namu Myoho-renge-kyo, all hail this Lotus Sutra, and you say that repeatedly, and this chanting puts you into a religious state, and that's right. There's drumming and there's
gonging and there's all sorts of things going on.
And the chanting is that aspect. Mm-hmm. So the Lotus Sutra is the centrality of the religious. The other aspect of it is patriotism, and it is a highly patriotic, from the very origins, very, very Japanese-oriented religious at least religious tradition,
right?
Which is kind of ironic because Soka Gakkai is by far the most internationalized religious organization here in Japan, and certainly has, especially in the United States, the only officially Buddhist member of the U.S. Congress is a Soka Gakkai International member. Mm-hmm. So it is spread throughout the world by missionaries who have used it in order to appeal or increase the appeal of what is otherwise a very secretive and mysterious religious organization that is fearsome not only because of its mystery, but because of its size.
Right. Well, a couple of the precepts that are important or characterize Soka Gakkai are the duty to proselytize and also to tithe.
There is the financial aspects, which again are entirely legal, but nevertheless are for many Japanese for whom the ties to religion are relatively loose. They may be a member of the Jodo Shinshu, of an Amida sect, or they may even be Christians, a very small number of them. But the intensity of the interaction that the Soka Gakkai has within its religious community is a bit weird, at least in modern Japanese times, especially post-Meiji. And indeed, it was, in its original form, seen as an enemy of the state. And
it was outlawed, wasn't it?
It was, and its leaders were arrested under the peace preservation law, that they denied the divinity of the emperor.
Right, sedition.
And which is lèse-majesté, that there was, and indeed the founder died in prison. The movement was broken by the dictatorial state that existed prior to 1945. And that's part of the modern Soka Gakkai's mythology, that it survived and managed then under U.S. occupation and then in the post-war era to suddenly flower. And that struggle against the dictatorial regime indeed is one of the really interesting aspects of the interaction that the Komeito has with the LDP of today, especially the LDP of the grandson of a war criminal, Abe Shinzo, that indeed these extreme right-wing, if you want, elements of Japanese life are now allied with the victims, or at least the descendants of the victims of the peace preservation law and the previous Meiji dictatorial state, is always been just a source of dissonance, and people, wait, this doesn't make any sense.
Politics is strange bedfellows, isn't it?
It
really is.
Yeah,
Right.
and so the Soka Gakkai has, it has a financial aspect, it has the chanting aspect, it has flags, it has a huge printing industry, and it has at its center somewhere, we don't know where, a charismatic leader.
Oh, we don't know where.
Well, Ikeda Daisaku, we assume that he's actually alive.
Honorary chairman.
But we don't know.
Right.
No one sees him. Though photographs occasionally appear saying this is a photograph taken in such and such a year, but whether he's really there or not, he's not. It's not that it's impossible, because he would be. He's still within the human lifespan, but it has become increasingly strange that no one sees him, that no one knows what state he's in, and that's one of the issues having to do with the Soka Gakkai. Who gets to be the leader after Ikeda? And Ikeda is only their third leader.
Right, since 1960.
Yeah, and he's been there since 1960. The movement has existed since 1930. And they're only on their third leaders in that time. And it's unclear how the Soka Gakkai, which is assumed to be around 8 million Japanese, which makes it by far the largest religious congregation, and one that votes religiously.
Right.
I'm sorry, I'm understating it. 8 million approximately adults, but put in children in there, and we probably have around 10 million, which is 1/12 of the Japanese population when you think about it. That mass of individuals have a mysterious, unseen, mortal leader who has to be succeeded. And there's one of the issues that is always, again, drumbeat in the background is, what happens when he's gone?
Right.
What happens when he's gone? And he may indeed even be gone, but they just haven't made it public.
So why is it that this Buddhist sect has been able to amass so much wealth and so much political power in the span of maybe 40 years, 30 years?
It has to do with the transfer of people from the rural areas to the cities that happened in the early 1960s.
And also that disassociation between families and maybe distrust of the big company sort of situation,
and
disassociations.
all these people, and you can watch NHK dramas. I think the current one is also on this subject. All these people who came to the capital, which you go up to the capital, Jokyo.
Right.
All these persons who came up to the capital to find work in offices, to find work in factories, they were cut off from their roots. Their roots. There may have been local associations, but mostly they were alienated, atomized individuals. And the Soka Gakkai in the 1960s, when the shift from rural to urban was very rapid, just vacuumed these people up.
And put them in danchi and collective housing?
They created a world for them to live in. Most importantly, and this was Ikeda Daisaku's incredible insight, you make the women be the ones who are in charge. And indeed, the Fujinbu, the married women's division, inside the Soka Gakkai is the core element and controls the religion. They have a male at the top, the mysterious male, but very clearly it is women who run the organization and who provide the basically the ground troops when they do deploy in terms of their political action. That was the second insight of Ikeda Daisaku. He went to jail because of campaign violations. So they revamped everything after he came out, and so that they would create a party, which they called the Komeito, which was conveniently translated into English, the Clean Government Party, that gave it an image of being not the LDP.
Cut above.
A cut above. And the CGP, though no one calls it that, everybody calls it the Komeito, provided them with an outlet for their religious practice, which is winning elections and providing votes to other parties that want to ally with them. This is a very strange behavior for a religion to engage in, but that is one of the basic pillars. And if it were men who were doing this, perhaps there would be much more of a backlash. But because women have play such a prominent role in all of this, it is possible it was just largely ignored.
What other industrial or commercial aspects does Soka Gakkai participate in, or do leaders of companies benefit from through their membership in Soka Gakkai?
It's hard to say what their financial issues are, how indeed finance works. Supposedly you're not supposed to lend money to other Soka Gakkai members so that they would be integrated with their society. And it has to be said that though they have their own universities, the Soka University, there's one in California, for example, on a huge campus there. They also go out into the world. The head of the Soka Gakkai, the Komeito, is a Todai graduate, law school. So he is clearly a member of the Soka Gakkai, and head of the Komeito, but he comes from that elite group that went to the Hogakubu of Todai. That kind of they have people all through the ministries, all through industries everywhere. That they have place a high value on education and getting their people into various places that are influential, and so the Soka Gakkai is integrated into the society. They don't have their own autonomous nation, though that was part of the change that happened primarily after Ikeda was put in jail. Before that, it was indeed trying to establish something of a religious counter to the secular world. That one of their planks was the establishment of a national ordination platform that all monks would have to go through the Soka Gakkai. That every Buddhist sect would have to do this, and that was operating in Japan. That's gone away, but that this integration of politics and religion is what makes it most fascinating and why we're talking about it at all.
The only final thing that I'm curious to get your insight on, maybe we can banter this back and forth, is the hesitancy that people like us and people generally have in talking openly about Soka Gakkai in a way that could be interpreted as negative or as critical of the association.
Well, it certainly had a very pugnacious reputation, and indeed, before the LDP allied itself in a marriage of convenience with the Komeito, the LDP was determined to break the Soka Gakkai in any way that it could.
Just hammer them.
And saw them as an evil, dangerous, duplicitous cult that had to be, oh wait, they're our friends now, and now we forget
Look how many votes they have.
And yes, that's right. And we suddenly changed our tune entirely. But it was definitely on one of their greatest enemies, and one that they could use in order to get other Nichiren sects who see Soka Gakkai as a heretic religion, a rogue religion that needs to be stopped. The other Nichiren Buddhist sects all supported the LDP. That relationship was something that was lost, and it's something that I've never quite understood why opposition parties have not been able to grab these religions and say, look, we're against them too. part of which, of course, is that no one wants to be against the Soka Gakkai.
Right.
The second is that there have been leaders and members of the Soka Gakkai who have become apostates, who have said they no longer believe in the tenets of the religion. And in books, in magazines,
Talking trash.
They have said that my life, the life of my family, has been destroyed. We're under threat at all times. There are goons that show up whenever we want to talk. That's going to ruin your reputation if there are people who were high-ranking members of the organization or high-ranking members of the Komeito. When they're saying that, that's going to give you a reputation of being basically a gangster organization.
Right. Well, also, it has a reputation, Soka Gakkai has a reputation of actually physically going after you for besmirchment, for tort claims, for damaging the reputation, that sort of thing.
Yeah, and if you want to go down that route, well,
even if they lose,
it's been always an easy target for outsiders because it is so different from the way most of Japan's religions behave, that it would defend itself should not be seen as something that's unusual, but it has been portrayed as unusual.
Yeah.
And they do defend themselves. There's no question about that. And why should they not?
It's funny that we're talking about a homegrown religious sect that is actively involved in disrupting Japan. And here we are complaining lots of times, or in the press you hear lots of times people complaining about the foreign influence coming in and disrupting the culture and disrupting the economy here. We should have a series on that.
Oh, maybe we should. But the one thing we should say, they do participate very much in Japanese life. And even when they establish their own religious schools, like the Soka University, it's not some kind of weird, twisted place. We know that because China's ambassador to Japan is a graduate of Soka University.
Right.
I mean, if the Chinese are willing to say it's okay, then it's okay.
The Chinese premier was here maybe 6 or 8 weeks ago, and he welcomed the president of Soka Gakkai with open arms, invited the delegation to visit in China.
They have a very close relation.
Makes sense, though, doesn't it?
Ikeda, from very early on, soon after the establishment of relations, made many pilgrimages and also accepted many students, which is where that ambassador came from, to Japan, to make that relationship so that the Soka Gakkai itself has this image of being a world peace organization, specifically geared, in this case, toward China.
Right. Soka Gakkai is a component that makes up all of these aspects that we consider a part of Japanese politics. We're going to continue to study these components as the series goes on. Please stay tuned. Provide your comments and suggestions to us for what areas you'd like us to talk about. Stay tuned.